Mic check, check 1 2. All good. For the anniversary of Affiliate Stream. About to get started with practice here shortly, but just wanted to give a quick thanks to everybody for being with me 1 year of affiliate, which means that I've streamed or commentated races for a little bit over a year. So again, thank you to everybody who's been with me since the beginning. I know some of you have, some of you more recently have found me, but again, thank you to everybody who has helped me out and supported me throughout this endeavor. We are just waiting for server reset. Possibility of some shakiness on the server this week. So we do have the potential for red flag. Hopefully no issues, but there is the potential for a red flag to need to occur. Server is up. We'll give everybody a moment to get in there so I can get a spot at the back of the pit lane, and we will be getting started with tonight's coverage. Quick reminder, I will not be in country next week. I will be venturing off into Mexico, so pray that I can make it back safely and we can get back going for what would be round 6. Now this is going to be a round this week where weather will be a big factor. There will be weather regardless. I say regardless, there is a chance of not having any rain or anything of the sort, but we should be expecting rain. Again, slight possibility that we don't get any rain during the race. It's a low possibility. Big question is going to be when does it not rain in qualifying? That is one of the top topics of conversation with the drivers pre-race this morning. Who's quick in the rain, who's not? We will definitely find out. Is rain the great equalizer or maybe the great imbalance? As some drivers may absolutely shine in the wet, where some other drivers may not really fare quite so well in those wet conditions where they would otherwise be blisteringly quick in the dry. So potential to pick up a lot of points. If you are looking to make a dash for your championship this season. Speaking of, let's have a bit of a look. At our championship standings. So in AM, drop race is not included. Shuby is leading your AM championship. Silva has dropped down to P2, Elmo in P3. And it is tied almost 3 ways for P4 between Schwartz, Lingard, and Sierra. In the overall, 1 point separating the Animus Racing drivers. Prieto currently still in the lead. And setting himself up nicely as we are approaching the halfway point of the season. For the first time in history, GoFAST Racing double is Trixie going very sideways through the final corner. Silth will set the first flying lap of practice. 1:43.878, very far off of the times that you would see here in the drive, but Silth will be one to set the pace for the field. Have to see if Silth can replicate results. Last week taking the overall win. Depending on the laps that he can put down in qualifying, may be looking for another run at the top spot. I'm going to throw this chat in here because I need to get the link for myself. But use exclamation point timing if you would like to keep up with the live timing during the race. Or in qualifying, very useful tool for helping yourself. And it is currently giant at the top of the board. So I think some water now being displaced from the track, making things a bit easier to get some more grip down. And it's a crowd of McLarens at the top. Goose and the BMW finding some pace as well. We'll have to wait and see for the rest of the field to set their laps. Schwartz currently the top time in AM in the Ford Mustang. Big Stang Motorsports teammate with Zoanam. But it is a crowd of M cars at the front, McLarens and Mustangs and BMW M4s. If you don't have an M, you're not going to be at the top. Only one Ferrari still in the top 10. Actually, I say that. Another M car is a Mercedes, jumps up into the 3rd spot. That is the number 2 AMG of Iceberg. Welcome in, Manelli. Slapshot, one to watch. He's not really directly in fighting distance with the 2 Animus Racing drivers in terms of the championship standings, but he is in 3rd place. Griffith and Ormison both in P4, tied at 73 points. And while it doesn't mean much now, if you incorporate the drop races, Slapshot is currently leading the championship by 1 point. It's a bit too early to call anything, but just maybe something to keep on the back of the mind. Zoanam top time in AM as we are approaching halfway through this free practice session. Ormiston sneaking his way up towards the front of the field. Currently P2. Previous champion. Did not have quite a championship contending run last season in Season 4. Coming off of the championship in Season 3. But there is a curse here in GoFAST Racing. You do not win championship twice in a row. Now maybe Ormiston wanting to get back up there towards the chop. Well, if he can't win 2 in a row, he may be able to offset 1 in between. But Prieto, we'll see if Prieto is out there on track. I don't see him at the top of the board. He is back out in the Nissan, just rolling out of pit lane. Your reigning champion and current championship leader, looking to maybe put a little bit of an extension on that current championship lead. But Ormiston and Sylph definitely wanting to challenge Sylph. Not quite in direct contention for the championship, as he has only raced in a couple of the races this season, but the ones that he has raced in, he has done fairly well. Aside from the preseason race at Oulton Park, did win last week at Suzuka. Sylph with the MSA 2 slow joint Mustang, definitely going to be one to watch. And Nate in the identically liveried Ford Mustang, but his with pink wheels just up ahead. The teal, blue, and pink Mustang duo. The curb's definitely going to be a bit of a factor to consider as Slapshot finds some time. 41.977 for the McLaren driver. And Slapshot looking at a major return to form in Season 3. Consistently placing towards the top of the field and getting 1 pole position in Season 4, but I don't think, off the top of my head, the Slapshot got a single podium in Season 4. A couple race wins here. Or at least 1 race win and some good finishing results here in Season 5. It may be a bit of a return to form. Yes, a win in round 3. Sorry, round 2 at Hungary. Round 3 last week at Suzuka did go to Sylph. So 3 different races so far. 3 different winners. Do we get a different winner tonight? Brute in the Aston Martin, top of the order now. 0.2 of a second to Slapshot. And James Earl Jones in the Lexus. Well into the top 10, leading your AM field. Same cannot be said about the AM field, as there have been a repeat winner, or there has been a repeat winner in AM, and that is Silva, who won at Coda and last week at Suzuka. That championship fight is on between Elmo and Silva. Elmo, if I remember correctly, is currently leading that championship. Sorry, no, it is Shuby who has the most points. Elmo currently in P3. Drop races accounted for, though, and Elmo jumps up into the top spot, leading by only 1 point. And look at it this way. If we calculate the drop races, which will become a factor later in the season, really at the end of the season, those drop races will be calculated. But if you incorporate those drop races, the battle in both Pro and AM for the championship win is separated by 1 point. 41 points to the championship to the championship leader to 40 points to the championship runner-up as current right now. But again, headline of the night for the pro field for the overall win. 3 different races, 3 different winners throughout the regular season. And very late for the F-35s tonight, but they are out and about tonight for sure. The 83 Mercedes of Chandler going off and around on his own. And the wet weather is definitely not the easiest to contend with. Griffith now up to the top spot. Your top 3 within 3/4 of a tenth of a second, 65 thousandths of a second separating the 3. Now the margins to Jones and Nightwalker. Currently P14, P18, 3 pros separating the 2 AM drivers there. And just a quick look at our entries so far. It is a wet weather race, so slightly lower entry for tonight's round, but currently 40 drivers on the grid to take to the wet Misano. And the F-35s are once again flying over, so if you hear any loud crackling sounds, it is the product of the military-industrial complex being tested from the Lockheed Martin factory about 10 miles away from me. Actually, no, more like 5 miles away. Tax dollars hard at work. 68 thousandths of a second between the top 4. And also, when I hear those F-35s flying over and I'm sitting here streaming, it does really pain me that I can't run outside and go stare up in the sky and watch the F-35s go by. A big slide for Brute, just barely managing to hold on to it. And those brakes in the way, you're definitely going to need to make sure that you have the car pointed the right direction and pointed straight. If you have the car the slightest bit of sideways as you come into a hard braking zone, the rear end of the car will go around. Just not quite being able to get it slowed down for Brute there, going off at turn 13 will be very, very tricky in the wet. A very fast, quick lift off and downshift if you need to corner. And Brute will come in for a practice pit stop. Quick check-in with Prieto, current championship leader, but the GTR maybe not the strongest car in the wet. Prieto will be looking to cover some ground. If he does not have quite the speed to get that GTR up on pole, he will have a lot of work to do to claw his way back towards the front of the field. As Prieto has a promising run inside a 10th And that, ladies and gentlemen, right there is GoFast Racing, your top 5 in practice. Granted, it's not qualifying, but in practice, your top 5 within a 1/10 of a second. And aside from Slapshot and Salinas being in the same car, that is 4 different cars in the top 5, all within a 1/10 of a second. One of those being the oddity of the Nissan Nismo GT3, piloted by your reigning champion of Prieto. Jones still leading in AM, but in the pit lane, and the majority of the AM field in the pit lane as well. Silva definitely going to be one to watch, especially in qualifying. Only 50 minutes or 50 seconds away from getting started with AM qualifying. And if you have not watched the GoFast Racing qualifying before, it is definitely a sight to behold. Both the AM and Pro fields, an all-out slugfest in qualifying, especially here when we have the adverse conditions of a very wet track. Now, conditions in qualifying could be different to the conditions now. It is a possibility that we have a wet or a partially wet qualifying. But as of right now, it has been a fully wet practice. And into the pit lane for Silva. Hopping on with another McLaren of Salinas. And he'll just go slightly wide. I think that is going to invalidate the lap, and he will continue on with the lap for a bit more practice. A touch of camber as you come into turn 5, and I think that is definitely going to invalidate the lap there, cutting across the track very harshly into turn 6. Yes, that is considered a turn, the kink of 7, and the hairpin of 8. I don't really see a turn there, but it is notated as turn 7, halfway down the straight between 6 and 8. And then you come into turn 10, which has the very slight kink of turn 9 just before it. Long, forever right-hander trying to get the car rotated on the brakes. Brakes a crucial factor as you're trying to carry speed just to get the car rotated around the corner as fast as possible. But right now it is looking to be a very good show in Pro Quali. Just a few more cars out on track, about 6 more. The 555 of Manelli just across the line will go into the pit lane. Salinas will go into the pit lane for a practice pit stop as well. And the one of Prieto for one final lap, 93 thousandths of a second off of the top pace, will not improve, but likely did not want to improve on that lap. And now it is time for qualifying. AM qualifying, who will be the first out? Schwartz, one of the first rolling, is going to be the first rolling, and we've got a Ferrari back. Oh, the session. Sorry about that little technical difficulty. We will be back on. Thank you, Prezi, for the follow. Sorry you followed during a technical difficulty. But a quick game crash easily solved. And just happens when you are pushing such high grids as we have in GoFast Racing, especially when you couple that with weather. Now, Silth will be very happy about that, as I have... Actually, no, I have not changed pit boxes. It is the 99 of Schwartz out front in AM qualifying. And Schwartz, who is Looking for another shot at the AM Championship. Really looking for a good result tonight. Thank you, Webb, for the follow. We hit 612. Can we do 620 tonight? It is my affiliate anniversary tonight, so again, thank you all for tuning in. Has been 1 year since I got affiliate, which means that it's right around a year since I started commentating races on Assetto Corsa Competizione. And into turn 1 goes Schwartz. Through turns 1 and 2, just trying to keep it within the lines. Now the AM driver is going to have a little bit more of a difficult qualifying session than the pros. When the AM drivers go out, there is no water displaced on track. They are going to be spending their qualifying session displacing that water. And every now and then we'll check in with the helicam to see if any of that water has been moved. But the quickest laps for AM, or the quickest laps for any driver in qualifying, is going to come at the very end. The more the track develops, the faster the lap times will get. This is going to be last lap shootouts in both AM and Pro. So definitely expect a lot of cars maybe coming in for fresh fuel, fresh qualifying fuel, right there at the end of the session, crossing the line with just a few seconds left. You want to start your final flying lap as late as possible. A big slide for Schwartz coming through 12 and into 13. It will be invalid. Now we will jump back to the 81 BMW of Scroll, who has been jockeying back and forth with Jones. And now getting a bit racy in qualifying. That is going to make things harder for the two of them to put a quick lap down. Jones was quickest in AM in free practice, and Silva immediately behind. These are going to be some of your front runners in AM qualifying. Jones did go fastest. Silva goes faster. And Silva now will have to try and navigate his way through the two up ahead, as they don't seem to be really giving each other much room on track. Nightwalker goes quickest in the Ferrari. And a very good lap from Nightwalker. Manelli finds himself in P3. Shuby currently in P4, your championship leader for AM. Definitely with some time to be made, but it's all about Nightwalker as of right now. All over the curb and on the power for sure. Just trying to keep nose of that Ferrari 296 pointed the right direction. He did a great job in doing so, but is going to abandon this lap. Silva has now gotten past Scroll and Jones, and now Silva will be able to run free. Schwartz and the number 99 Mustang just up ahead, this time getting it right, not going wide through turn 13. Just trying to be very easy on the power coming out of 14 through 15 and 16. Very, very tricky to get the car rotated. You heavily rely on grip through those two corners. They have a slight bit of camber to them, but you are really trying to push the track limits. A bit more tricky when you're doing so in the wet. Third for Schwartz. And again, if you would like to keep up with the live timing, you can do so with the ! timing command, and you will go to the GFR private drop down to find the server. Nightwalker still quickest in AM qualifying. Did go into the pit lane, has come back out, like with another load of qualifying fuel, which is not going to be very much. Want to keep these cars as light as possible, especially in the rain. Very, very touchy these cars will be. Mid-engine cars do seem to be faring at least a little bit better. Zoanam finding himself up in P4. And Zoanam recently having a few more consistent podium finishes. He has really found himself in the Porsche, and a very fitting car for Zoenam, as he's got a couple classic Porsches that he races at Laguna Seca himself, and I can guarantee you that myself and many others are very jealous there. Peachy moves up into the third spot, knocking Manelli and Zoenam both down a position. Just a couple minutes left in AM qualifying, but let's have a look at the pro field, and they are all stacked up waiting at the very end of the pit lane. The leader there is going to be the number 9 Aston Martin of Aramich, and they are all very eager to get out on track. I did say we would look at the helicam to see if we can see any discoloration in the track that would notate some displacement of water, and no, not quite. We do see a little bit there coming through turn 6. And I believe that was Schwartz in the Mustang going back to the pit lane. Not as much displacement of water as we will see when we get started racing. There is at least the start of some track development there. The pros will have a much quicker track to take to qualifying with, as their qualifying will start in less than 2 minutes. It will be one more flying lap. It's Nightwalker versus Silva at current, and all of the AM drivers, all 16 of them of this 40 car field, have set a lap time so far. Are we still at 40 cars? We know we are at 42 now. So 16 AM drivers, and I believe that would make what would that be, 26 pros? I believe that would be 26 pros if I can do math correctly. And off and around on his final flying lap, I believe it may have been the 99 of Schwartz. Will not quite be able to make it out. Nightwalker went quickest, a lot quicker, 142.447, over half a second to Silva. And Nightwalker, I did say when we were just putting some laps in practice, rain, the great equalizer. You may find some drivers who absolutely shine in the wet compared to others who may be blistering in the dry. Nightwalker definitely found some pace here in the Ferrari at Misano in these wet conditions. Shuby has invalidated the lap. P3 no better, so has Nightwalker, and will leave the track to Silva. Silva and Manelli as our pro field takes to the track, headed by Aramich, and they are all very much looking to get out there as early as possible. Not so much that they may want to get the first laps out there on track. They want to get moving, displacing as much water as possible. Does Silva have anything on this lap? No. We'll move into the pit lane. What about Manelli? Does he find any improvement? We'll continue on with this lap. The 81 is scrolled just behind, I believe, has just invalidated. Will it be any improvement for Manelli? Currently P5 moves up to P4. What about for Zoenam in the Porsche? Very quick in practice. Does he have a similar time in qualifying? No, not necessarily. P8 for Zoenam. And I believe that is going to bring an end to our AM qualifying. So we'll throw the camera on Aramich while we take a quick look at our AM starting order. Nightwalker P1, Silva P2, Shuby P3, Manelli P4, Jones P5, Scroll P6, Elmo P7, Zoen on P8, Peachy P9, Sierra P10, Schwartz P11, Chandler P12, Lingard P13, Clint P14, Christian B P15, and Lynch P16. It is now Aramich leading the field as our pros get started with their qualifying session. Aramich not quite very high up the order in practice, but we'll see what he can bring to the fold in qualifying. And just has not had quite the season that he would have been looking for. It's a 24 just behind. I believe that is the 24 Aston Martin of Brute. Yes, it is. But Aramich just has not quite had the season that he would have expected, the season that he would have liked. Because there just has not been the results he and the Team BDK Mod team of Trixit have been looking for. But should be top spot on the board at least momentarily when he brings this time to the line, as long as it stays valid, as long as it is valid. The full breadth of the pro field out there on track currently. Out of the final corner, dipping two wheels just onto the inside curb and floating it out to the outside is a bit dodgy in doing so, as those curbs are very, very slick in the wet. Currently P2 for Aramich. Say 142.712 will be the fastest time currently in pro, at least until the Animus Racing Ferrari of Ouroboros and then the Animus Racing Nissan of Prieto. Your current championship leading team now split by the McLaren of Salinas. Prieto showing a bit of pace there towards the very end of free practice, was within a 10th of the top times in free practice. Peach P7, Marvy P4 in the Aston Martin. Slapshot jumps up to P2, just 142 thousandths of a second away from Ouroboros. It's just about a 10th and a half. Is that going off in the grass to the inside? That is the 456 of Tychopath, recently promoted to pro this season. And contending with the big dogs. Aramich with another lap 2 log in the books. Currently P8 for Aramich, looking for some improvement here. Does he find it? Goes up to P3. Less than 3/10 outside of the time from Ouroboros. Brute goes quicker though, 141.630. And remember the headline. 3 rounds, 3 different winners. Do we make it 4? As this is one of the most highly contested fields in GoFAST racing history. Prieto just 37 thousandths of a second behind. And Prieto doesn't necessarily need to win, is currently leading the championship, but he needs to ensure that he does not have a bad result. Ouroboros just barely went quicker. Slapshot in the McLaren, currently P4. Your top 11 separated by less than a second from P11 all the way up to P1. What about the 34 of Dingham? The pink and blue BMW. Currently P31. and really wants to try and get himself out of that AM field, as you'll just be swallowed up in battles. Aramich with one more lap, or at least another lap logged in. We'll get about 2 more laps when he crosses the line. Currently P6 goes back up to P3. 47 thousandths slower than Brute, but that is really just about a wheel between the two. But Prieto makes that margin a little bit bigger. Now over a quarter of a second lead to Brute and Aramich. And Prieto just hiding a little bit of pace in his pocket. Really bringing it when it matters. But remember, as I said earlier in AM qualifying, the track will get quicker the longer the session goes on. We will see our quickest lap times when that clock has struck 0. The last laps of this qualifying session will be the quickest. The 221 of Giant moves up to P4, knocks Ouroboros down to P5, and Ouroboros, the Animus Racing teammate to the reigning champion, has quite a bit of work to do to catch up to his teammate. Still all about Prieto, who is doing everything that he needs to so far to try and set himself up nicely for the double. It would be the first time in GoFAST Racing history to win 2 championships in a row. But Prieto has not quite felt the championship curse just yet. Will have one more flying lap, as will the rest of the field. Brute just a bit further ahead. Aramich just a bit further ahead. Giant will get this lap and one more. Ouroboros in the pit lane up to P4 will not improve past that. The 71 of Your Mom in P11 slap shot down to P8. Does he find any more time on this lap? Is it any improvement? Not quite. We'll have one more opportunity though. And now a second separating, still your top 11, almost your top 12. And now it is crunch time. Fastest laps of the session will come now. Brute, P2, Aramich, P3. Giant, P4, stays P4 currently. Griffith currently P5. I believe just slot in there between Giant and Salinas. Ormiston currently P8, Sylph P9. And now your top 13 separated by less than a second. 721 of Yellow Lemon just crossed the line, currently P19, barely has enough time to go for one more lap. The 91 of Phoenix Gecko across the line, currently P42 with one lap, or on his final lap, no more time, goes P17. Prieto on his final lap, almost getting it wrong. Does find some more time, makes a lot more work for the rest of the field to do. The 20 of Adrian across the line goes P14. What about the 71 of Your Mom will be the next across the line. Most of the drivers going into the pit lane. Your Mom currently P13, stays P13. What about the 2 of Iceberg? Out of the final corner, trying to get on the throttle and keep the car within the track limits across the line for Iceberg in the Mercedes, P17. What about for Marvy in the Aston Martin? Currently P11, stays P11. Griffith goes P6. That was Francisco, P24 currently, and the 21 of Platypus across the line, P16. That will bring an end to our qualifying session. Prieto back on pole as the starting grid is set. Prieto P1, Brute P2, Mitch P3, Ouroboros P4, Giant P5, Griffith P6, Salinas P7, Ormiston P8, Sylph P9, Slapshot P10, Marvy P11, Trixit P12, Your Mom P13, Adrian P14, Nightwalker P15, Platypus P16, Iceberg P17, Phoenix Gecko P18, Guzman P19, Yellow Lemon P20, Peach P21, Silva P22, Goose P23, Nightwalker in P15, your Am Pole Sitter, Silva P2, Shuby P3, Manelli P26, Jones P27, Nate P28, Scroll P29, Elmo P30, Zoanon P31, Peachy P32, Tycho P33, Sierra P34, Dingham P35, Schwartz P36, Chandler P37, Lingard P38, Clint P39, Christian B P40, Lynch P41, and Langley P42. It's Prieto at the front of the field. We will take a short break and we will be right back for the formation lap. Track is currently wet. There has been a little bit of a shower, but there will be more starting very, very soon. So wet's definitely going to be the option. As Prieto will lead us off the line. And 42 cars, or 41 cars behind your current championship leader and reigning champion, as he will lead the field to the line. Mitch just behind, who has put himself into one of the best starting positions he's been in this season, is definitely going to be looking for a run at the top. Brute as well. The two Aston Martins who have shoehorned them their way into the top three. Will they be able to finish up here in the podium? Ouroboros, teammate to Prieto, who we are currently on board with, pole sitter, reigning champion and current championship leader. A bit further back, Nightwalker in the Ferrari, your Am pole sitter, and you will be looking for an orange McLaren quite a ways back. That is going to be his next competition in class, and he will have quite a few pro drivers in between. Both of the Alpers Racing Mercedes immediately behind, and well, they're not really going to try and mess each other up, so we'll kind of be a buffer between Nightwalker and Silva. But Silva, very, very quick. Going to be one to watch. And not going to be too much tire warming here, as the track is just damp. Those wets are not really going to be holding much temperature, or they're not really going to be keeping much temperature down, not quite as well as they would when we get running, as you don't see very much weaving. As most everybody just wants to keep their tire pressures down as low as possible. The tires will get a little bit of temperature up as they need, but you really just want to bring these wet tires to temperature during the race. You don't want to get them too warm early, as they do not fare very well once they get warm. And wet tires, once they're warm, pretty hard to keep them cool. You can try and put them in as much water as possible, but you will be going offline quite a bit. And rain increasing and then decreasing, so it's just going to be enough to really get the track nice and soaked, and then we'll see how long the drizzle continues. You do see a couple puddles there as you come into the final turn. There will also be some runoff in the cambered section down to the inside curb. That could be a factor when considering your overtakes, or just going for an overtake, locking the front tires and sliding across the line. Approaching the line, Prieto leading green, 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 as it is Nissan, Aston Martin, Ferrari. They come through turn one. Ouroboros already getting eager for position, looking to take the spot away from Aramich, who will not be very generous in giving that spot away. Nightwalker in the AM lead, and all in a pro jumble here, just wants to try and make sure that he can stay clean though. And who is that around? Is that the 71 of Aramich? Not of Aramich, of your mom. Yes, it is of your mom. And one of the Team Elmo Racing Mercedes involved in that as well. Now Nightwalker has Silva almost immediately behind, and that did not take long. Nightwalker now has a lot of work to do to try and keep Silva behind. And the 93 of Guzman gets a 30-second stop-and-go penalty for speeding in pit lane, and we'll put it on the trailer, as that is not quite going to be the starting result that he was looking for. Thank you, Wilson, for the affiliate anniversary celebration, and it is my affiliate anniversary, as stream is lagging a little bit. It will get itself sorted momentarily. Just take a moment, as there it goes now. Prieto will lead the first lap, Brute in tow. Aramich in P3, and how far behind is the Ferrari of Ouroboros? He is not immediately behind, and does seem to possibly be under attack from the Mustang of Griffith, who has the McLaren of Giant for company. Silth in the Mustang there as well, and Marvy behind all of them. Marvy trying to keep up with his teammate of Griffith in the Smooth Operators Mustang just up ahead. And not really much to be seen. The spray definitely making things a bit harder to see, especially if you've got a large group of cars up ahead. Speaking of a large group of cars up ahead, go on board with the Ferrari of Nightwalker. That is quite a bit of spray. Very quickly becomes hard to see those cars just ahead. Thank you, Keldon, for the follow. It's survival early when you're racing in these adverse conditions. Just get yourself into a comfortable position and then try and work your way up from there. You definitely need to give the car some time to warm up, get into its prime operating state, tires up to temperature, and everything of the sort. Silth going a bit narrow and a bit wide onto the curb. We do have an incident behind involving the 83 Mercedes. If I can find the 83 Mercedes. The 83 Mercedes of Chandler with very, very, very large amounts of damage. And the 30 Aston Martin of PG, both of those drivers are going to be going into the pit lane very shortly. Both teammates, I think they may have actually gotten involved with each other. Both of the M&M Racing teammates out of the track, and I believe they both tried to cut through the track and both got a disqualification. It's a very unfortunate day for the Team M&M Racing teammates. Silth and Marvy, as the Aston Martins definitely seem to have some pace here in the wet. Applying pressure to the Mustang of Silth. Silth, an extremely quick driver. Maybe the Mustang just not quite having the speed in the rain, but this is definitely going to be a bit of an ego boost for Marvy for sure. As Silth, an incredibly quick driver, and Marvy looking to put the hurt on early. Aramich, I believe, has gone off and made a mistake on his own. Maybe outbraked himself. That will bump Ouroboros up into the third position, but a poor exit of turn 14 may open up the opportunity for Aramich to get that spot back. Ouroboros is not far away. Who is far away, though, is Prieto in the race lead. 5 minutes in, 3 laps complete. And Prieto out front. No spray to deal with. No one around to really worry about, but things are not quite the same as you go a bit further back. Aramich now has the Mustang of Griffith wanting to apply pressure from behind. Giant, Silth, and Marvy. Marvy and Silth, that battle we were just checking in with earlier. As Marvy now seems to be opening up the gap. As Silth gets a little bit of room to run. But Marvy on the brakes. The Aston Martin seems to be a little bit more handy in the corners. Your AM race leader with YOLO Lemon in the McLaren behind, but that orange McLaren just a little bit further behind is the top contender, second place in the AM field. And Nightwalker, who wants to take home his first win in AM, at least this season, possibly first win in AM ever in GoFAST Racing, wants to try and keep that orange number 720, McLaren 720 SGT3 behind. YOLO Lemon in the McLaren, though, wanting to go up the inside. YOLO trying to catch up to the other McLaren, a Slapshot just a bit further ahead. And I think Slapshot gets it all wrong on his own and goes around. Same thing with the BMW of Goose. That will move Nate up a couple positions there. Slapshot still waiting for the field to go through. Zoanam gets very, very sideways, manages to keep it pointed the right direction, and a sliding overtake nearly for Zoanam. Now a battle here between Elmo and Iceberg. Iceberg in the pro field will go on ahead. Both of these drivers with a bit of damage on their machines. Ormiston and Nightwalker. Less than a tenth between them at the last timing line, but Ormiston probably being given courtesy of the track. YOLO Lemon still just splitting the two AM competitors. And Nightwalker probably very glad that YOLO is there. It makes things a bit harder for Silva to move up and try and go for an overtake. Your mom now back behind Nate, as he has what seems to be a little bit of damage on that McLaren. Yes, pretty good amount of damage on the side of that McLaren. Battle between Marvy and Griffith now, as the Mustang just does not quite seem to have the pace here in the wet, at least not the pace they would be looking for. Marvy P7 for the number 7. And it is just fluctuating amounts of rain for the foreseeable future. Again, we can only see 10 minutes into the future. Pit stops are still required. I don't think a tire change is required, but you will need to come in for fuel. And Marvy just trying to hold on to the slipstream of Silth just ahead, is right outside of it. But that Aston Martin, especially being in a battle just between Silth and Marvy, may be able to close up that gap and get close enough to go for an overtake through the corners. Nate and your mom continuing racing between the two of them. Just very nice and easy through the turn 5 and 6 complex. It's a bit of a difficult section of track in the drive. Very, very difficult here in the wet. Your mom just will not be quite close enough, but I don't know if that's a brake failure or what for Nate, but he goes very, very wide, and your mom and many others will slot in ahead. Silth once again closing up on, or sorry, not Silth, Marvy once again closing up on Silth. I think the Mustangs here in the wet had some decent pace in qualifying, but in terms of race pace, just not quite there. And with more rain on the horizon, does not seem to be a very strong outlook for the Mustangs. And Marvy this week in the wet, the quicker of the two smooth operators drivers, as I think that may have just been some team orders between the two, saying, hey, let me go on ahead. I think I can take Silth. And Marvy will just need to try and hold on to that slipstream. Phoenix Gecko and Ormiston. GoFast Racing newcomer going against a GoFast Racing veteran. Phoenix Gecko proved his pace quick enough to be bumped into the pro field, did not race very long in AM. And now Nightwalker, your AM race leader. Silva, a good ways back, but Nightwalker like, hey, come on guys, you need to go. I cannot waste any time being held up as my top competitor in classes. Bit of a ways behind, but I don't want to have him get any closer. Does Ormiston get more rotation up the inside? He will have the higher top speed down the backstretch, but Phoenix will go defensive. And will they try to go side by side through the kink? Yes, they will. It's very, very difficult in the wet. Ormiston is all the way to the outside. What about through 12? What about through 13? Phoenix Gecko just barely stays ahead. Ormiston late on the brakes, wants to slot in aside. They make a touch of contact. And elbows out. Ormiston gets the move done, and a flash of the lights from Phoenix says, hey, I'm not very happy with that overtake there. But I don't know what Phoenix will be able to do about it. Pushing a little bit too hard, trying to find the pace to get that spot back and almost completely losing it. And again, another flash of the lights in frustration, and Nightwalker behind, just sitting behind like, man, do not go around in front of me. And thank you to Slow Racing for the follow. Very, very dramatic racing here. And Nightwalker gets it a bit wrong. Is that going to open the door for Silva? YOLO Limit will slot in ahead. And now there is no one between Nightwalker and Silva. Silth and Marvy, this battle continues. You see the Aston Martin closing up quite a bit. Marvy getting a bit sideways coming into turn 10 though. And the Mustang incomparable in GT3 in terms of its top speed. The Lexus and the GTR may be a competitor there in the top speed. The Mustang is one of the better culminations of speed and grip. I believe that is the 81 of Scroll around on his own at turn 3. Sorry, that would be turn 4, I believe. No, it would be turn 3. Now Marvy just not quite able to get there. Still within range of taking advantage of a mistake. Ormiston has now grown that gap up ahead. Phoenix Gecko still pushing. But you can see applying a bit of counter steer coming out of that final corner. On the brakes late, on the power early. Just trying to find whatever pace he can. We do have an incident. The 444 of Elmo and the 424 Lexus of Jones. Jones was very, very quick in AM, but just has not had very good luck so far. Yeah, Chandler, I believe they both took each other out and then both tried to cut through the track to get to the pit lane and repair, and caught a disqualification in doing so. Unfortunate for the Team M&M Racing duo. Well, Phoenix Gecko may now have the threat of YOLO Lemon behind. BMW getting a lot more traction out of turn 10. The McLaren not quite falling out of slipstream range, but it's definitely not gaining. What about between Marvy and Sylph? Marvy is right there, closer than he was on the previous lap. Yeah, Chandler, but I gotta give the news for everybody else. I did not know either, but I also did not know there was a cut through. At least I wouldn't have tried to go for the cut through, as probably wouldn't have thought about it. Marvy and Sylph, this battle getting a lot closer as Marvy very late on the brakes gets right up onto the rear bumper of Sylph. Now that will compromise his momentum through turns 5 and 6, but Marvy is definitely there. That battle between the two is far from over. Prieto still your leader, and not with a massive lead. It is a 2-second lead to Brute, but one slight mistake from Prieto, which he is not immune to, would put Brute right back into the conversation. But that bit of traffic there, I believe that is the 24 of Shuby, if I'm correct. Trying to figure out which of the Mustangs that is. So it's, sorry, it was the 24 of Brute, it was the 63 of Lynch. Looking for the wrong numbers in the wrong places. Sylph and Marvy continuing their fight. Not much happening between the two though. The rain still staying somewhat consistent, a bit of a fluctuation up, a fluctuation down. BMW battle between Goose and Langley. Langley was very far down the order, has worked his way up to P17. The pink and blue too slow BMW trying to take a spot away from 16, or take P16 away from the 28 of Goose. Peachy, thank you for the subscription. I greatly appreciate it. If any of you would like to support me and maybe help me get a PC so we can branch out the commentary into maybe iRacing or on Ultimate, or maybe even ACC on the PC, or is it of course at Evo? If you would like to support me and help me raise some money for a PC, Twitch Prime subscription or just a regular Twitch subscription would be a very helpful way to do that if you have Amazon Prime. A Twitch Prime subscription doesn't cost you anything, or at least anything on top of a Amazon Prime subscription. And it also gets rid of ads, which I try not to have too many on stream, but do have a little bit here and there. Zilthan Marvy just continuing to run between the two, and we are getting close to the time for pit stops. There is quite the gaggle of cars behind the 416 of Slapshot. We go on board with the 427 of Nate. You've got sorry, not Zoenom, that's actually Manelli up there, as Nate has overtaken Manelli, and then it's Manelli, Zoenom, Jones. Jones actually at the back there. Elmo with some damage. Haven't quite caught it, but Francisco has come into the pit lane, got the pit stop out of the way, so has Scroll. Those two drivers, the only ones who have come into the pit lane, completed their pit stop. They are now going from here to the end, but possibly a bit of a kicker. Rain ending in 10 minutes. And maybe if you're on these wet tires, you run them out as long as possible. Possibly throw some slicks on at the end of the race. Speaking of pit stops, Brute in the Aston Martin with the fastest lap of the race, by the way, comes in from P2. That will put the Animus Racing teammates at the top of the order, and we will be expecting some more drivers to come into the pit lane shortly. I believe, can you just go, I would just Google Twitch Prime, and it should give you a link to do so. It's also in the extra benefits tab on Amazon, on the Amazon app and website. Silva from P2 NM comes into the pit lane, possibly looking for some time for the undercut. But again, that rain ending may be a bit of a factor to watch out for. Don't want to go on wets, and then those wet tires start to become the unfavored tire. Jones with some yellow flags. Unsure of exactly what for, but still out. Brute rolling out of the pit lane, and it is a long way to go to the exit of that pit lane. Nice and clean for Brute, no speeding, and will now be the furthest driver ahead to have a pit stop completed. Next behind will be the McLaren of Silva. Shuby comes into the pit lane, or actually now just comes out of the pit lane. We are still awaiting a few, or actually quite a few, more drivers to come in. And yes, I believe Christian B DQ'd as well, and it was a driving in the wrong direction disqualification as well, so unsure of exactly what happened to Christian B, but yes, another disqualification. The 721 of YOLO Lemon comes into the pit lane as we are now starting to get a few more takers, but again, that rain is weaning off. It could be the gamble to stay out. If this many cars on track, the track would be dried, and especially if the sun came out, it would dry very quickly. It is possible that a slick tire may be an option in the last maybe 5 minutes or so of this race. Still awaiting a few more entries into the pit lane, and who is at the 416? A Slapshot, just managing to keep it pointed the right direction. And we'll just sit and wait for the field to go by, but not quite the race that Slapshot was looking for. And Marby still working on Sylph, getting closer and closer, but just not quite able to catch the Mustang. And no entry into the pit lane yet. Ouroboros does come in from P2, was running in P3, and very conveniently finds the last spot in pit lane. It is now Giant, Sylph, and Marby as this battle is getting a bit more than just between the Mustang and the Aston Martin. Nightwalker, your AM race leader, comes into the pit lane as well. And we'll pull in just a couple boxes ahead of Ouroboros. Does Marby get this overtake done before it is time to come into the pit lane? Awesome, Kent, glad you could figure it out. And no, Marby gets it all wrong. And the car stalls out, gets it refired, but will now lose positions. He will lose one to Griffith, he will lose one to Trixit. And that is not how Marby wanted that to go. Was working on an absolutely monstrous run against the Mustang of Sylph, and now Sylph able to breathe a sigh of relief. But Giant still up ahead, may now be under attack from Sylph, who does not have any pressure from behind now. Prieto, your race leader, comes into the pit lane. And very spotty on those pit stops, everyone wanting to stay out as long as possible. There were some concerns for server longevity, as we did have a few server crashes earlier, and there was a piece of advice thrown out saying to stay out as long as possible, as to ensure yourself having the best finishing position should the server crash. Thank you, Wilson, for the Prime subscription. And we are over the halfway point, which in terms of the pre-race communications, should we have a red flag, the race would be called as is right now. And look at that. In the pit lane, Silva has jumped Nightwalker. And Silva applying pressure to the Aston Martin of Brute. Brute again holding the fastest lap of the race, but Brute bunching these three up, and this is your battle for the AM lead between Nightwalker and Silva. Now trying to get past Brute. Nightwalker, the door opens. They're almost 3 wide through turn 15. There's not quite enough room there. Elbows out, argy-bargy all over the place. Nightwalker goes up the inside. Silva just about runs out of track, almost makes contact with YOLO Lemon, and they are 2 by 2 across the line. Nightwalker definitely not wanting to lose any time in this battle whatsoever. YOLO Lemon going through, threading the needle as Brute gets pushed out alongside. And I think Brute just wanting to let these few battle amongst themselves. What has happened to Brute again? Going wide. And now allows Silva to go on through. In the meantime, we do have a few more entries into the pit lane. Manelli just now rolling out. Sierra rolling out. Shuby has come in and out of the pit lane. And Elmo in the pit lane, but with quite a bit of damage to repair. And Nightwalker, through all that, somehow manages to get the AM lead back, at least on merit, as the AM drivers who are just a bit ahead have yet to come into the pit lane. And you may be onto something, Cave, as Brute could very well be on slick tires as that rain is ending and maybe going for the gamble. We'll have to see if it pays off. A lot more drivers coming into the pit lane now. Schwartz in the pit lane, Adrian, Nate P in the Mustang. Elmo, after repairing the damage, just now getting out of the pit lane. YOLO Lemon will be the furthest ahead, who has completed the pit stop, and with that time being lost by Brute, it does beg the question, has Brute gone for slicks? If the sun comes out, Brute has got the strategy on the money. If the sun does not come out, it is going to take a long time for the track to dry, even with this amount of cars. Aramich from the race lead comes into the pit lane. And going for the gamble, we shall see Schwartz and Nate just coming off the jacks. Adrian, who I believe may gain a few positions in the pit lane there. Marvy comes into the pit lane after that unfortunate incident with Silth just a couple laps ago. And let's do a little bit of investigation with Brute, who is once again dropping back a few more positions. Actually, maybe not positions, just a couple more cars going in between. But looking at the brakes, very much pedaling the brakes into the corner and very easy on the throttle. The rain has concluded. We'll see if that is it for the night. And that very well could be a game-winning strategy for Brute. He is a long ways behind the race leaders, though. And going wide, that may be another factor of being on slicks. Jones just trying to get into the pit box and stopped, but having some issues getting stopped in the pit box. A few more drivers still yet to come in. Giant, actually it's no Silth that will lead this lap. Silth yet to come in. The 81 of Scroll off at turn 13 in the gravel does manage to get it back rolling. With less than 15 minutes in this race, over 2/3 of the way through, Phoenix Gecko comes into the pit lane, but over 2/3 of the way through, just about half of the field has come in. We are going to have a lot of very late pit stops. And again, the track and the sun has started to come out. If you're out on slicks, this is a prayer being answered. And Brute with the fastest lap. Should the sun fully come out, it will again be a prayer answered, an absolute blessing to Brute, but he just needs to survive until then. And no rain continuing again. The gamble completely goes away. And just when it seemed that Brute may have gotten it right, again, there's still plenty of time for the track to dry. If the sun will fully come out, the sun is definitely out quite a bit. A lot more sunlight than there was. We'll see if this track may dry a little bit. If Brute can get up the order as Silth comes into the pit lane. And it is definitely sunny out there now. More rain is coming, but if the track can dry fairly quickly, Brute may have an opportunity here. 4 of Langley, who had worked his way up through the field, gets a 30-second stop-and-go penalty, and that will knock him right back down the order. Salinas coming out of the pit lane in P22. Silth still in the pit lane. Giant yet to come into the pit lane. But not far behind is your race leader. And Prieto has just got it all right. Should be a no-brainer for the reigning champion. Dingham and Tychopath here is... wonder what exactly happened between the two there. Tychopath has gone ahead and is still going ahead. It's gaining a lot of time as the sun seems to be fully out now. It still shows partly cloudy, but it is bright and sunny on track. The track is not really drying though. I don't know if that's helping Brute much at all. Still quite a few cars ahead that need to come into the pit lane, which will give a few spots back. Rain will be coming. And thank you, Ken, for the Prime subscription. Greatly appreciated, especially on my affiliate anniversary. Again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to those who are watching on the YouTube side as well. I know there are a few of you, and if you are not following, I'd greatly appreciate it if you'd hit that follow button, or if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel. It is still under the same name as the Twitch channel, just a YouTube channel where all the races are saved so you can watch them at a later date and on the big screen, such as a TV. And we are almost to 200 subscribers on that YouTube channel. If you'd like to help me get there, I'd greatly appreciate it. Lingard currently leading in AM, but not far behind are your AM race leaders, or the previous race leaders. Zoenam currently running in P2, but Nightwalker, your race, or was your AM pole sitter and AM leader, as Goose in the BMW comes into the pit lane. Dingham in the BMW also comes into the pit lane. Nightwalker and Silva not far between. The rain will start here in about 5 minutes, I believe. And the track is just not really drying for Brute. He went for the gamble. It will rain at the end of the session, but as of right now, it does seem to be drying a little bit. Brute still holds the fastest lap of the race. And no, the 28 of Goose gets a 30-second stop-and-go penalty for speeding in pit lane. Giant in the pit lane, should be coming off the jack soon. Griffith now scored the race leader. Giant rolling out of the pit lane. Prieto will go on by. It is a long run out of the pits. We will see where that may put Giant. I believe Silth will come out next. Aramich may come out as well. Tychopath coming into the pit lane. Silth will come out ahead, and now starting to drop a few positions. Ouroboros next ahead. The 221 of Giant, I believe, will come out just ahead of Ouroboros, and he's actually gotten out just ahead of Aramich. And has this put him onto the podium? Silth is not far ahead, and Giant will have much fresher tires. And the rest of the field. Has Giant played this perfectly? It's a long way to Prieto in the lead, who likely has this race closed out now. But it is far from over for these podium spots. Still a handful of drivers yet to come in. Ormison comes into the pit lane. Goose comes in to serve that 30-second stop-and-go penalty. Griffith still out on track, is going to go the long haul. He's already gone this far, says might as well take it just about all the way. May come in on the final lap. Does not have many more laps to come in on. Battle here between Giant and Aramich. The rain will begin again in about 3 minutes time, and it will be a rainy final lap of the race. Aramich definitely applying the pressure into turn 1. There's nowhere really to go, not much of an overtaking into turn 1, but turn 2 is a bit of a different story. As they come through 3, you then kind of line back out between the two of you. But hard braking, that is one spot where the Aston Martin seems to be super strong here at Misano in the wet. Braking zones and corner exit. The Aston Martin able to drive through the corner a little bit more than the McLarens and the Mustangs. Definitely stronger on the brakes though. Griffith comes into the pit lane as well as Trixit. They have waited a long time, but they know that the rain is coming. Your mom will also come into the pit lane as well. Would not be surprised to see Slapshot come in soon. Battle between Giant and Aramich continues. Nightwalker and Silva, the battle for AM has grown a bit. 3.5 seconds between those two. Probably not much going to happen there. Marvy and Armiston now going to become a battle. These two both having completed their pit stops. Armiston in the Mustang, and the drier track may favor the Mustang a bit more. Aramich again all over the rear of Giant as they come across the line. Aramich may be looking for a bit more eagerness coming into the turn 4, 5, and 6 complex. Prieto now back, scored the leader once again. 39 of Griffith comes out of the pit lane. At the next timing line, we'll see exactly where everybody lines out. 81 of Scroll yielding to this battle. This is the battle currently for P3. The final spot on the podium between Giant and Aramich. Does Aramich want to go for it into the hairpin? No, not quite, but may get a bit more drive out of the corner. Sylph is not invulnerable as well. With some traffic up ahead, I believe that may be the Lexus of Jones. It is. This is a 3-way fight for the final spot on the podium. Yeah, but sadly the sun did not stay out. Everything just did not go the way Brute had gone for, but it was a gamble from the start, and he knew it was a gamble as the rain once again comes down. And with just 2 laps to go, Prieto is leading. Sylph, Giant, Aramich all fighting for P3. Ouroboros not far behind, cannot be counted out of that fight. It is a bit further back to Griffith though, who just about has everything lined out his way. Marvy now well ahead of Armiston as the rain comes back down, and that Mustang seems to lose a bit of pace. Silva, as I think Nightwalker may have had a bit of a mistake on his own. Zoenom still needs to come into the pit lane, as he likely will on this lap. But now a large gap between Silva and Nightwalker. And Nightwalker had it all going his way, but now things not quite looking so nice. Clint still needing to come into the pit lane as well. We'll do it right at the end of the race. And now things heating up here at the front. Sylph and Giant coming down the backstretch, and just a bit further behind, Aramich and Ouroboros doing the same. All 4 of these drivers fighting for the final spot on the podium. And this is where things get a bit risky, especially if you're pushing in these adverse conditions. The track not fully wet like it was earlier. We did have a bit of a 10-minute dry spell, and the sun came out, so it removed a lot of that moisture. Now we are adding more. Prieto will lead the final lap of the race, and a four-way battle for P3 begins, actually for P2. Silth will try and hold on to his spot. Aramage goes a bit defensive behind, does not want to allow Ouroboros to score any more points than he already has. Ouroboros all over the rear of Aramage, though. Mustang of Silth goes a bit wide into turn 3. What about into the 4, 5, and 6 section? 4 of them all together. The Mustang has the better top speed, the McLaren has the better acceleration, the Aston Martin has the better cornering, and the Ferrari is just a mix of all of those. We'll see who takes it here at the end. Ouroboros and Aramage a bit closer between those two than Giant and Silth. See if Giant wants to push for it. Currently in third. Silth up ahead, currently staying up ahead. There is a very big overtaking opportunity into turn 14. No one quite deep enough on the brakes to go for it. They come into 15. Still nothing doing. Prieto takes the checkered flag and breaks the streak of 3 races with 3 different winners. Prieto, the first time recurring winner here in Season 5. Silth takes P2, Giant P3, Aramage P4, Ouroboros P5. And Griffith will take P6. Trixit will bring home P7. Marvey will bring home P8. Ormison will bring home P9. Your mom P10. Eventually. Phoenix Gecko P11, Yellow Lemon P12. Silva will find himself in P13 overall, taking home the AM win. Getting yet another win in AM. Nightwalker pretty much had it 90% of the race, but he will have to settle for P2. And almost had his maiden win in AM. Still a very good run for Nightwalker. Dingham will bring home P15 for Too Slow Racing. And again, don't go anywhere just yet. We will find somebody to raid. And I'd like to keep as many of you here as possible as we go find somebody to raid post-stream. Tychopath takes home P15. Dingham actually moves up to P14. Slapshot P16. Schwartz P17. P3 in AM, so a podium for him. Lingard P18. Shuby P19. Salinas immediately behind. The drag race to the line. Shuby will take the victory in that battle between the two, and Clint will be the final car out on track in P21. Track all to himself and able to bring it home to the checkered flag. And P20, and it will be P6 in AM. Again, don't go anywhere just yet. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been my 1 year of affiliate stream. Thank you all, everybody, for staying with me for the past year. And across the line for Clint will actually take home P22. Don't know exactly what caused that there. But Prieto takes home the win. Silth P2, Giant P3, and in AM, Silva P1, Nightwalker P2, and Schwartz P3. Stick around, we will find somebody to raid. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for 1 year of affiliate streaming. And we are going to go ahead and raid Ib Schofield Racing. again, thank you all for tuning in, and I won't see you next week as I will be in Mexico. If you would like to take up the mantle in streaming next week at Snetterton, please send me a message and we can figure something out. Thank you all and have a good night.